Every apartment has a story. Some are ordinary, some are tragic, but a few are stories that were never meant to be told. This is the story of Mark, a man who ignored a simple warning, never opened that door, and once he did, there was no turning back. Mark was in his mid-20s. He had just moved to a new city, chasing a fresh start and a cheap place to stay. His job barely paid enough to cover rent, so when he stumbled upon an old apartment building on the edge of town, it felt like a blessing. The building was eerily quiet, its walls cracked, the stairwell groaning under his steps, and the air colder than it should have been. But the landlord offered him a price that was too good to refuse. The apartment was modest, a tiny bedroom, a kitchen barely working, and a bathroom that smelled faintly of rust. It was fine until he noticed the door. At the end of the hallway stood a wooden door, old, paint peeling. A heavy rusted lock sealed it shut. Mark asked, "What's behind this door?" The landlord stiffened. With a forced smile, he replied, "That room has been locked for years. Do not try to open it." His voice was sharp, almost threatening. Mark laughed it off, but the warning lingered in his mind. For the first few nights, everything was normal. But soon, things began to change. Late at night, just as he was drifting to sleep, Mark heard it, a faint scratching noise coming from behind the locked door. At first, he thought it was rats. But the sound grew louder, sharper, deliberate, long claws dragging across wood. And then came the whispers. Soft, muffled, as if someone was speaking just inches behind the door. One night, he froze when he heard it clearly. A whisper calling his name, Mark. Mark pushed a chair against the door every night. But each morning, the chair was moved. Not far, just enough to remind him something had been there. The scratches on the door deepened, and once, as he stared in the dark, he swore he saw the door shift. Something was pushing from the inside. When he confronted the landlord, the old man's face turned pale. "I told you, do not go near that door." And with that, he left quickly, refusing to say more. Curiosity is stronger than fear. One night, when the scratching became unbearable, Mark snapped. He grabbed a hammer. With each strike, the old lock cracked until it broke apart. The door creaked open. Inside was a room small, windowless. The air was heavy, damp, suffocating. The walls, they were covered in claw marks, deep gouges, like something had desperately tried to tear its way out. In the corner lay an old mattress, and on it fresh indentations. The weight of a body, as if someone had just been lying there. Mark staggered back. He turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind him, hard. He rushed to it, pulling, slamming, screaming, but it wouldn't budge. And then, the scratching began again. Only now, it wasn't from the door. It came from the walls, all around him, growing louder, closer. The room trembled as if the walls themselves were closing it. And then, a laugh. Soft, chilling, right next to his ear. "I told you, never open the door." It was the landlord's voice. But the landlord was nowhere near. The voice had come from inside the room. Suddenly, the light died. Total darkness. Cold hands gripped his arms, his neck, his legs. The whispers rose into screams, dozens of voices clawing at his mind, and then a final breath on his ear. Hot. Close. A whisper crystal clear. Now you'll never be alone. Mark was never seen again. The apartment remains vacant, still cheap, still available. But the landlord offers only one rule: never open the door.